Ja, herzlich willkommen zu unserem Gespräch mit dem Autor des Stücks, das Sie, glaube ich, wahrscheinlich die meisten von Ihnen gerade gesehen haben. Slavoj Žižek, Philosoph, Autor und Felix Ensslin, der Regisseur des heutigen Abends. Ich will nur ganz kurz sagen, wie diese Einladung zustande gekommen ist und wie sehr wir uns freuen, dass wir jetzt im Anschluss an die Aufführung dieses Gesprächs haben werden. Das FFT hat eigentlich schon viele Jahre mit dem AGORA-Theater gearbeitet, als es vor allen Dingen Programme noch für Kinder und Jugendliche gemacht hat. Und dann starb der künstlerische Leiter und die Gruppe hat sich neu orientiert. Und das fiel eigentlich zusammen mit der Begegnung zwischen dem AGORA-Theater und Felix Ensslin. Und das ist bereits die zweite Produktion, die wir sozusagen in dieser Konstellation hier am FFT zeigen und die wir co-produziert haben. Der Grund, dass Slavoj Žižek hier ist, dass Felix Ensslin und er seit vielen Jahren sich kennen und befreundet sind. Und es ist eine große Ehre, dass Sie extra sozusagen aus Anlass dieser Aufführung nach Düsseldorf gekommen sind. Ich weiß, dass Sie gerade in Malmö waren und Freunde von mir haben, die dort Ihren Vortrag gehört haben, haben erzählt, dass Sie dort ja, in einem Saal mit über 800 Leuten gesprochen haben. Also ich hoffe, Sie freuen sich, dass wir heute hier die Gelegenheit haben, direkt mit Slavoj Žižek zu sprechen. Vielleicht nur ganz kurz zum Anfang, weil die beiden werden sich ohne Moderation unterhalten. Also wir gehen davon aus, dass vielleicht so 40 Minuten hier vorne das Gespräch stattfindet und dann haben Sie natürlich auch die Gelegenheit, Fragen zu stellen und sich zu beteiligen an dem Gespräch. Ich meine, Antigone, ich weiß nicht, wie es Ihnen ging, wahrscheinlich viele von Ihnen, so wie ich auch, haben Antigone als eigentlich die Heldin, die Verkörperung des, also steht immer für Zivilcourage, ja, oder dass sie sich mit der Macht anlegt und eigentlich sozusagen gegen den Herrscher aufsteht und es sich traut, im Unterschied zu Ismene. Jetzt haben Sie gerade gesehen, ein Stück, was irgendwie 3 verschiedene Enden hat und das heißt ja auch die 3 Leben der Antigone. Und vielleicht kann das irgendwie die Einstiegsfrage sein, was interessiert euch, Sie, Herr Žižek, und dich, Felix, an Antigone?
Geht das? Ja. Erstens muss ich mich entschuldigen, ich kann ein bisschen so Deutsch sprechen, aber dennoch nicht gut genug. So, Sie können natürlich Fragen stellen und mich unterbrochen, weil ich sprach zu viel. Ja, man muss brutal sein. Wenn man wartet auf mein, wie heißt das, Silence, auf mein...
But you will speak in English and they can ask in German.
Absolut,
yeah.
Kein Problem. Okay, you want a very brief comment from me. You know what interests me? I'm a very alienated philosopher. And forget about all that psychological bullshit up and down. I want to ask especially you, actors, like where do you stand with regard to my 3 versions? Because don't buy that bullshit at the very end. You are free to choose. No, I hope you noticed it. I'm fully on the 3rd side. Of course. I think I do this on purpose to shock you. I think Antigone is the worst. Creon is a little bit better. And you know who knew this? Do you know, we don't have time to this, I don't talk too much, but you know a little bit Os, and then I will stop, believe it or not, and so on. You know, of course, my 3 versions are not the only 3. Of course, there are numerous other versions. One that I like pretty much, although it's often dismissed as even proto-fascist, is Jean Anouilh, Antigone. But you know, there you see the entire madness of interpretations. You know that although the reviewers were mostly critical, the public, for the first, it was premiered in 44 till at least 1950, perceived this as a great play of resistance, French resistance, and Créon as state representative. But it's so interesting. I read now a long study on Anouilh, preparing for you here. You know, I hope if you know a little bit of history, these names will mean something to you. Robert Brasillach, the great French proto-fascist intellectual. He was a great intellectual. He wrote, I forgot, with another guy in late 30s, the best at that point history of cinema, with good appreciation of Soviet film and so on. And Charles Maurras, Action Française, another. They loved the play, Anouilh, and they were absolutely for Antigone. But you know from what standpoint? Créon is a Jewish administrator, pragmatic. Antigone is a true figure of fascism, who stands for blood, Boden, against state alienation. And I think this is part of what makes Antigone so attractive. Another thing, just to provoke you, I have to say this, another thing that may interest you is how often the newer versions make it too easy for them. An anecdote that happened to me, my good Jewish friend who is also connected with Palestinians, Udi, well, you want me to do this stupid fellatio position, Udi Aloni staged in Freedom Theater, Antigone, and his version was, of course, actualized. It's a Palestinian family. Antigone's brother is killed because he is part of West Bank resistance by Israeli military, and she wants to bury him. Israel prohibits him. But I told him, this is making it easy. It's total falsification. You should never forget with Antigone that, if I may put it in brutal, direct terms, I'm sorry, but Polyneikos was really a bad guy. So I proposed to Palestinians there, and they instantly agreed with me that the proper Palestinian version would be a big Palestinian West Bank family, and they discover that their son informs Israelis, is a traitor, and then he is killed and Antigone wants to bury him. And I was so glad to discover that some PLO, whatever circles, deal with this problem, and it's a nice sign of Palestinian enlightenment that they found a relatively open formula. You are liquidated, but then the family is allowed to bury you proper. Did you also, I'm sorry, I forgot her name, this mega scandal, which happened here with you in Germany. There is a British, sorry? In Dortmund, yes. A British Pakistani writer, I'm sorry, it's not racism, it's old senility. I forgot her name. She did a novel which was wildly prized, got prizes. It's called, I think, Home Fire, something on this. Antigone story repeated in today's London. The brother of a Pakistani Muslim family joins ISIS, then he wants to return home, admits he made it, blah, blah, blah. The point is that she got a prize, big prize, Nelly Sachs prize in Dortmund. Then, when the committee discovered a couple of months later that she signed one or two supporting letters for boycott, divest, BDS, they took the prize back from her. Even Brecht, correct me if I'm wrong, I read Brecht's version a long time ago, makes it too easy. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in Bertolt Brecht's version, Antigone's brother or two brothers are killed as resistance gegen die Nazis, and their bodies hang on some post, how do you call it, lamp, stange, Yes, and then Hank just left hanging there, and she wants to bury them properly. But sorry, this makes you feel good, because you are trying to retain the dignity of a true hero. My ultimate German version of Antigone would have been, sorry for the tastelessness, but I like to be tasteless. What if Adolf Hitler had a sister? And she said in May 45, came into Russian, okay, you killed him, now I obey to a higher gazette, you know. All I wanted to tell you is that the problem is difficult. It's a serious problem. Okay, we can leave all these details for later. Just what I already explained to the actors. It's not critical. I'm too confused now to give all my reactions, but one moment that I liked is that when there is, at least in my scenario, a truly, really brutal moment, the greatest massive violence. At the end of my second version, when Thebe is burning, that you have chosen Goldberg variations, no? As a, and now I can, sorry, you, who? Yeah, but who has chosen it?
C'est moi.
You see, this is made so. Yeah. What I want to say is that, you know, when they performed my Antigone in Zagreb, Agram, Hauptstadt Croatian, Zagreb, the version, I had a very benevolent conflict, you know, for the final scene liquidation. You know which music I wanted, you would never have guessed. Very tender, soft. You know, that beautiful, he called it even, I think, musique de meuble, furniture music. Eric Satie, those gymnopédies and so on. Now you will say, you are crazy. Hey, don't forget. Eric Satie, perceived as this bourgeois, you know, when he died in 24, he was a member of the Central Committee of the French Communist Party. I think we should rehabilitate that line of French composers, Debussy, Ravel, Satie, who are perceived as the type of... Sorry? You know, my problem with Bach is the same as with Schoenberg, whom I love. My problem with Bach is that if there are less instruments, with the exception of, how to call it, organ, which I hate his music, all the better. I like cello and violin sonatas. That's miracle. Leave this to philosophers to decide. You know why I like Schoenberg? After returning, no, he didn't return. In his last years, Schoenberg says that in a civilized country, you can say everything you want in music with maximum chamber orchestra of 5-6 people, chamber, ensemble, that orchestras are needed only for stupid Americans, you know. They understand it, and then it's a beautiful irony. Somebody asked him, but you wrote his masterpiece, Gure Lieder, which is, I think, if you perform it properly, maybe a piece with greatest number of performers that you need. Double symphonic orchestra and 500-600 people chorus, and he gave a wonderful explanation. That it's just a chamber piece for 600 people, you know. And you approached a little bit this dimension, even when people were shouting around and so on, the chamber feeling was here. Okay, liest man noch immer hier, wenn ich jung war, wir lesen Karl May, Winnetou. Und am Ende, Winnetou sagt immer, Hoch, ich habe gesprochen. Okay, das will ich jetzt sagen. Ich habe gesprochen.
Am Ende sagt Winnetou, Winnetou stirbt als Christ. Das ist der letzte Satz von Winnetou 3.
But do you have a problem with this? I mean, no. I'm an atheist Christian. And good theologists develop this. That's why I like, are you here in Düsseldorf? If you give the wrong answer, I leave the city immediately. Are you Protestant or Catholic part? or it's mixture? Because you know that I came from Malmö and met there Norwegians and Swedes have some extremely intelligent theologists whose version is that, and they quote as a proof predestination, that the ultimate mystery of Christianity is that God that we encounter in book of, how to pronounce it here, Job, Hiob, the book where...
the guy with the jokes.
Yeah, that you can clearly see there that God may be, God the Father, all-powerful, but morally a total barbarian. And that this is how you should read the sacrifice of Christ. It's God's apology. I screwed it up, sorry, I paid to you with the death of my son. But I speak too much.
Well, first of all, thank you for a little ride through the world. I mean, clearly, the interesting thing about doing this piece is that you became Brecht with a theology degree, right? You joined the antique tragedy with the possibility of renewal, difference, a different choice, a different life.
No, sorry, I will just to make clear my position here. And again, I provoke you here, you will not agree. There are three mega heroines, no? There are others. I know, I'm half gebildet, dennoch. Antigone, Electra, Medea. That's my order. My favorite one is Medea. That's true femininity. You go beyond mothers. Electra, hysterical in a very good sense. I think hysteria is for authentic psychoanalysis, a very radical position. Hysteria is a questioning of subjectivity. Hysterical answer is you, ideology. You tell me I'm your servant, I'm your mother, but am I really that? Why am I that? I absolutely prefer the other two heroines.
Actually, you just quoted three plays that were quoted in the play tonight.
This is my yes. I hope you are half gebildet. You noticed some, at least 20, 30 references, like the final scene when Antigone...
it's the microphone, hey, Slavoj, microphone.
It's from Verhörtes Guten, a short poem by Brecht, when then they say, it's not sword, it's gun. Okay, you're a good guy, so we will shoot you with a good gun and bury you in good earth and so on. It's all full of quotations, and so that you will not accuse me of total idiocy. I know that kol nidre is, I think, from 16th century. They only invented it. I mean, was at least first recorded.
The liturgy, yeah.
Sorry? The liturgy, yes. So I'm definitely not such an idiot who thought whatever. But I always laughed. Would you tolerate to tell you my favorite Judeo-Christian Palestinian joke? Because I think the most perverted thing today is maybe this beautiful playing with anachronisms. I believe in the explanatory power of anachronisms. Remember, when I go to Israel and then also across to Ramallah, I discovered, do you know that there were years ago 20%, now there are still 5% Palestinian Christians. They're the nicest people I met. They have an incredible sense of humor, even of religious humor. You know who is Tiger Woods? Golf, no? Yeah, okay, you just have to know this. A wonderful, soft, I will offend nobody, religious joke they told me, that, which is very deep. It shows how God himself is not perfect, it's decentered, alienated from himself. Jesus Christ was tired from his eternal preaching, so he said to one of his apostles, listen, let's take a break, let's go to Galilee and play golf there. So Jesus hits it and misses, the ball goes to water. Jesus said, no problem, I'm God, and he walks on the water, picks up the ball, comes back. And the apostle told him, but listen, my Lord, my God, maybe you are not so good and so on, you know. No, Jesus said, but I can hit a stupid ball. So Jesus hits it again, it goes again into the water. So then Jesus again had to walk on the water to pick up the ball, and now comes the beauty. Anachronism, I love it. At that point, a group of American tourists on a bus comes by and is shocked, a guy there walking on the water, and asks the apostle, but who is that guy who thinks he can walk on the water? Does he think he is Jesus Christ? You know what the apostle answers? No, it's much worse. He thinks he is Tiger Woods. You know. That's what psychoanalyse teaches us. I mean, I'm so sad that it's my life project that Jews and Palestinians cannot make some kind of a stupid fucking peace. Because Palestinians are in some sense the Jews among the Arabs. They are doctors, the most enlightened, and what I find it so sad is that Palestinians are becoming aware that it's not only Israeli occupation, other Arab nations also strictly manipulate them and so on, but we are moving from our target, you know. Please go on.
You know, I just need to breathe for a second. So, well, you wrote, you wrote one play in your life. And you wrote about 7,000 books. So there's a reason why you wrote one play and not another book. And I think that has to do with the figure of Antigone, because she is precisely this difficult object of trying to define what is the difference between subjectivity, resistance, identity, heroism, nature, culture, nation, where do you belong? And I mean, here are the great actresses who did this. We tried to show that in your play and with your slightly humorous, and I find quite comical actually, invention of saying that...
I agree with you here, but
it's a quite comical invention to say that Antigone exists 3 times, and to be, you, as a writer, shut up, you were cowardly enough not to write the second ending, really. You said a lot in your directions, you say a lot of what already has been spoken gets repeated. So we invented an Antigone that survives, which is actually saying an Antigone that is no longer an Antigone. Right.
You mean, sorry, now I'm not interrupting, just clarification. When you say survive, that version when with Ismene, they reserved a plane ticket and...
Exactly, yeah. So, and I mean, an Antigone that survives, that actually Creon gets killed, Haimon gets killed, Tiedemann burns because the people are upset because Antigone gets rescued by Creon, and then well, both of them, right? They both live in exile afterwards, and that is actually an interesting part of your decision to say there are 3 lives of Antigone. If there are 3 lives of Antigone, one at least has to be one of an Antigone that survives. And Antigone...
Why? I'm more cruel here. Can you explain why?
Well, because you wrote it, first of all, but secondly, secondly, that there can, I mean, the rest of the lives of Antigone that die, of course you can find hundreds of ways why somebody dies. I mean, she could have cancer, or she could be run over by a car or something, but if she dies because of her actions, there's 2 versions. One, because Creon kills her, or the second, because the people kill her. And both of those options are in your play. The second option is Tiedemann burns. Creon was right to say, no, I can't accept what you are trying to do, because otherwise the city will burn, and the city actually burns, because he accepts it. And then these 2 bitches, these 2 women take a plane and take their Oedipus money to another city and survive. And what is an Antigone that survives? I think
no,
in a certain sense, I'm not quite done yet. In a certain sense, this is exactly what you're politically trying to propose, to say we need to develop relationships in these kind of opposing moments, like for example Israel and Palestine, where the heroes don't die, they survive, they come together.
Yes, but here again, it's my professional deformation as a philosopher. I like to mystify things. I think it's a horrible thing, and I don't like Trump. He's an abomination. But that Donald Trump will maybe survive, if we will all survive his reign, yeah, as the ultimate president of avoiding conflict survive. Did you notice how often he plays this game? He talks a lot, threatens, then all the world is on the edge. A madman has his finger on the button of the atomic.
And then he goes and plays golf.
Sorry?
And then he goes and plays golf.
Isn't it clear? I have friends in Iran who are half arrested, but nonetheless, he told me this was a wonderfully done, negotiated settlement. After Trump ordered the killing of that General Soleimani, they made a precise deal of how Iranians can bomb some empty, military barracks, be sure that nobody is hurt, and they defuse the tension. It's the same with North Korea. With all the talking, Trump actually diffused the tension. Some American leftists who hate Trump proposed the reading, bombastic terms, claimed that if Hillary were to be the president, the possibility of a war with either Iran or North Korea would have been much greater. The reason I worry about Trump are at another level. But if I made something, because you mentioned Oedipus, no? You know where I maybe not disagree, but read, please, forget about Hegel. I even disagree with Hegel here, who has this classical definition, Oedipus, tragic hero. He didn't know what he is doing, but in this typical tragic way, he nonetheless had to take responsibility. Please read Sophocles. This doesn't happen in
Keiner liest Sophocles heute, man liest nur noch Žižek.
Wait a minute. Oedipus at the end, he doesn't admit anything. There is no tragic recognition. Oh my God, he said, no, I didn't know. It was not fate in the sense that I am objectively responsible. Part 3 now comes. Oedipus at Colonus. That's my true hero. It is as if finding himself in this totally destitute position, he is finally free.
And what does he say to Antigone?
Sorry?
What does he say to Antigone?
Okay, I don't know. But
No!
Okay, a bet. You are objectively lying. 5 years of Gulag.
Well,
check it out.
I learned from you that objectively lying is one of the paths to the truth.
You will learn this in Gulag when we take over. Check it up. For long years, does any of you know Oedipus at Colonus? Chorus said this. Me finai and all that bullshit. The best luck is not to be born at all. And in my tasteless way, I hope this will amuse you, I propose this to a Slovene agency as the best pro-abortion campaign. The best luck for unwanted child is not to be born, and we arrange it for you. But that's my taste. But what I wanted to say, I love Oedipus at Colonus, who is not this wise old guy, reconciled with fate. He knows what he wants. To fuck up, ruin Thebes, his city, and to sell his death as expensively as possible. Whom to profit? He is a wonderful character at the end, when he is totally deprived of all humanity, he finally has his desire free. So he is my
And he found Oedipus.
Sorry?
And he found Oedipus Incorporated.
That what I like. Just don't forget something. I don't have the time to go into it today. It can be developed in a nice way. Jacques Lacan did it. Oedipus doesn't have an Oedipus complex. No, it's totally wrong. Oedipus just did it through his mother and so on. But he didn't know it. There was no unconscious investment or whatever. I totally distrust this vulgar psychoanalytic reading. What if Antigone wanted to fuck Polyneikos or whatever, incest? Paradoxically, now you will say, but we call it incest, Oedipus complex. You know, Claude Lévi-Strauss, the great anthropologist, mentions one American North American tribe which claim that all dreams have a sexual meaning except directly sexual dreams. And I think it's the same will. All families are in Oedipus complex except the Oedipus family.
I think by Lapta Keaton here were trying to show this in part today, that some of them have one and some of them don't. But the question is it still a political issue? The question,
it is.
Yeah.
No, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I am not totally against Antigone vulgar. And I've learned my feminist...
Think about your friend Judith Butler. You know,
Sorry?
think about your friend Judith Butler that you love so much.
I love so much her personally,
yes,
good terms, but not theoretically.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you read her book, Antigone's Claim, did you notice something which is for me, as a Stalinist theoretical policeman, one feature which betrays her? All these humanist defenders of Antigone, she stands for all oppressed, excluded, and so on. They have a problem with her emphatic statement, it's only for my brother that I'm doing it, not others.
Now you're talking Hegel.
Yes, Hegel has a shady, I don't like his theory. The problem is that so many interpreters throughout the centuries tried to explain this away as a later insertion. No, this couldn't have been Antigone and so on.
Goethe famously said that. Yeah, Goethe famously said that. He wished that this was not a...
but it is. And even typically, unfortunately, she does the same, Judith Butler. No, I think, and I agree with Judith and other great feminists who point out that the beauty of Antigone is not in what she demands. It's just purely sacred, apolitical, but the way she acts is in a way publicly appropriate only for men in that society. That's the beauty of her, you know?
Wenn man heute zu einer Oedipus-Inc-Treffen geht und man sagt Mama, weiß man nicht, wie viele sich umdrehen und bei Papa schon gar nicht.
No, don't provoke me in this, because you are addressing me as a Slovene, and we have a wonderfully trigger warning, if you are politically correct, vulgar Oedipal jokes. Like a Slovene classic is a small son asks his mother, Mommy, what is Oedipus complex? You know what mother answers? Shut up and go on fucking. Let's not go into that. Let's not go into that. But can I add another, more serious thing where I'm
How much else do you have on your list?
This is the last one, in two parts. The first one is why Antigone? I don't know how it is with you, but in Slovenia, my country, when we became independent and so on, Antigone was the absolute national heroine. The idea was communists at the end of the World War II killed all the collaborators with the Nazis without proper judgment, burial, and... Yeah.
I'm glad you speak to my actors, but there's a lot of people up there too.
No, I'm a Stalinist. They are the party, and they are nomenclatura. Fuck you, you are ordinary party members. Because, you know, Stalin said this wonderfully. He said, our greatest treasure are people, That is to say, cadre nomenclatura, as if others don't count. But now, a more serious, not a reproach, but maybe why I liked your staging, maybe I didn't understand it the way you meant it, and I want to ask you this. You know, my God, I would like to see you in Gulag. You know, you take my words and then you add all those songs and so on.
Yeah.
No. The usual reading would have been words are pathetic and so on. It is in this actings out that you get a more authentic existential position. I think it's the opposite. Pure ideology is in all that dancing and so on. That's the pure ideology. I see that as like, I say something, what does it ideologically mean? Here you have the song and so on. So I read again that part where you have spontaneous outbursts and so on as, wie sagt man das auf Deutsch, Ideologie in reinem Zustand.
Ja.
Ja?
Yeah.
A sincere ja? Or
Absolutely.
a revisionist who just pretends to follow the party line, but...
No, it's, this is, you are not really a theater author. I'm sorry to tell you that. You're a brilliant guy, but this play needs to be played, and to find this connection between ideology and subjectivity, you need to invent connections, and pop music and other elements are forms to do that.
Okay. My last question. You know what tempted me? I loved when you mix, I saw all the pop music and so on.
It's very hard to see a play that you wrote, I get it.
No, but you know what I was tempted to do, what was my dream? You remember, repeated 2-3 times that the most famous, the biggest hit of Antigone. You know, many ungeheuer monster, that chorus song, but nothing more ungeheuer but that Hölderlin, or monstrous like men. You know what I would like to do there, I imagined? You are too young to remember, maybe you heard it from your parents or what. In the 50s, before rock proper, you had this disgusting with sweet violins pop music, like, do you remember some of you elder on Perry Como, Caterina Valente, Connie Francis, this? I would like to have that chorus sang in this sweet way by some pop singer, you know, because that's, I think, the most stupid part of the entire play. I don't see anything deep in it.
I think you need to find an 80-year-old director for that. Because
I'm approaching that, so you know.
Some of the music.
No, but
from
you know what I
Slovenian
wanted
friends.
to say. Sorry, I wanted to say that I have a great. I hope you don't love this line of mine. It will minimally amuse you, but I mean it very seriously. I despise incredibly deep thoughts and wisdoms. I think they are inherently conformist. Whatever you do, you can always find a proverb that will just... Sorry? Yeah. For example, let's say you are in a risky situation. You take the risk and you succeed. And then, I don't know how you have it in German. In my language, you can say it rhymes. It sounds better. Only those who risk profit, like you should take risk. Let's say you take a risk, you fail. You have another deep wisdom. It says, it's very vulgar, I like it, you cannot urinate against the wind. You know. This is wisdom. I will prove it to you in another way, very short. Let's take the relationship between our earthly life and some higher spiritual eternity. If I tell you, dismiss earthly life, the only truth is spiritual eternity. If I say it, I cannot, with the right tone, it will sound as a wisdom. If I say the opposite, don't trust eternal life, we probably will never reach it, enjoy carpe diem, enjoy the moment. It will sound as a wisdom. If I tell you, don't fall for this difference, try to discover eternity in earthly life, it will sound as a wisdom. If I tell you again the opposite, we are split between eternity and earthly life now, and this is our eternal fate. It will sound a wisdom. So I think chorus is usually in Greek place, the place for stupidity. And that's why that was my idea. What if the chorus itself is no longer so stupid?
So you think we were not stupid enough?
No, but chorus at the end, finally, and I like very much, I appreciated it, how did you call it, durchqueren or what?
Yeah, durchqueren.
This how actors change. This reminds me of what I do like about Brecht. You know, Brecht, where he said how his Maßnahme should be performed. Yeah. He insisted that it must be performed literally for actors to learn, so that each of them goes through all. And incidentally, my Ja Sager, Nein Sager was even the model for my Antigone. There you also have...
You wrote that actually.
Yeah.
In the first line, you know, first line of your introduction, you tell us that.
Yeah, but also, you know, other films that I liked. You have then Kieślowski, his best film, Przypadek, Blind Chance, usually, 3 versions. Then you have, of course, it's commercial.
Lola Rent.
Lola Rent and so on, you know. And I like this idea of to understand what happens, you have to include what might have happened but didn't happen. You have to have the entire span to get the, you know, I'm a Hegelian, and I'm sorry to tell you, I use it not too much, just I would say 10 times in my last book. One wonderful joke from maybe the greatest in Hollywood, Ernst Lubitsch, you know that. Coffee joke, you know, a guy goes to a cafeteria and says, can I get coffee with cream, please? And the waiter says, sorry, I cannot give you, no, he says, can I get can I get coffee but without cream, please? And the waiter says, sorry, sir, we don't have cream but only milk, so we can only give you coffee without milk, you know. That's what Hegel meant with bestimmte Negation, that although materially plain coffee is the same as coffee without cream, but symbolically it's not the same. And in this sense, I think what happened really happens can only be understood against the background of what might have happened.
Well, I think this is a very good moment in which
My
to
God,
open.
you really despise me. You said this is such a patronizing
I hate you for decades by now. It's all good. I will open it for 2 questions.
Yeah, but
do you want to ask the players?
Tell me, in a very naive way, pre-Brechtian even, you actors, where do you stand if you were at a gunpoint? Let's say I'm a really hardline SS or KGB agent, and I tell you, okay, choose which of the 3 versions. Do you have a position, or are you Antigone softest nonetheless?
We had this discussion a lot of times.
And okay, tell me, what was the... please.
Actually, we had this moment in the rehearsal together. The director asked us 2 questions. Which end would you like to happen, and which one do you think is realistic? And it was a great violence to all of us, I think, this question.
In what sense violence?
In which sense?
Violence.
Well, you working on a play and all the complexity of it and all the questions that you are asked as actor, as player, as figure, as member of a group, as thinker, maybe. And then suddenly you need to answer that question that's very brutal. And we all made the round. I'm not sure we want to start again. I said, for me, the one I wish for would be the 3rd. And
you are! Oh, my communist friend, perfectly.
And the realistic one would be between 1 and 2 in our world.
Yeah, because, you know, that's what I wanted to say, that Creon might be a conformist, whatever, but sorry, if he is right in his judgment, we cannot be sure, then it's a really tough decision, like it's ethical to allow Antigone to do it, but what if hundreds of people will die because of it? I'm not saying how to decide, I'm saying that it's a serious dilemma.
Of course, for me it's very clear that Antigone is not an angel, right?
Yeah, that's
She's a real bitch, I mean, and I very much like to play this kind of figure, obviously.
I hope this works also for you as a person. That you are a bitch. Please.
As I remember, most of us prefer the third ending with the choir, and I said that I don't trust the choir.
The chorus.
The chorus.
The chorus.
Sorry. The chorus, yeah, because as you said, he's he's as stupid as all the others. And so I prefer an ending which is...
Do you imagine, sorry, a fourth ending maybe? Totally.
An endless ending which is eine Annäherung.
Ich verstehe, ja, ja.
Actually, I forgot what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't believe in the third... I would prefer the third ending either.
No, but I agree with you, because you know where I am careful. I am not saying now they will have a perfect people's democracy after that. Maybe even a worse terror will emerge. I'm not saying it will not. I'm just saying it's an authentic outburst. But like October Revolution also was an authentic outburst, and look at what happened in 10 years, you know. I'm not as naive as it may appear, but you know what for me important in this idea of three endings? How often in our actual political life we have a certain opposition portrayed to us by the media. For example, either Western liberalism or some fundamentalism. But what if this opposition is not the real choice? What if this opposition is wrong? I often suspect that the way big struggles today are portrayed by the big media, that they already somehow falsify, obfuscate where the real problem is. For example, very briefly, in Vereinigten Staaten, United States today, the big opposition, will Trump prevail this neo-fascism, authoritarian, all democracy? But for me, the whole problem is that Trump didn't fall from the sky. Obviously, there was something wrong in this democratic hegemony of the last decades, that all of a sudden the space was open for a disgusting figure like Trump. So I think it's not enough to say, of course, against Trump, I am for no, one should ask, what did we do wrong so that a monster like Trump was possible? That would be my ultimate position. Be skeptical about what officially is presented you as the big struggle today.
I would just actually quote Daniela, if I may. The first week, when we said, you said, okay, Žižek wrote 3 endings. Why not 54? When it's I think that is a question that we asked ourselves often. At the same time, we had this author, and he wrote 3.
Well, do you know, I report on this, sorry, I know you should answer, but immediately, but do you know, I write about this in my introduction. I read somewhere that it's kind of a half-proven, not really, and I love this for historical reasons. It tells us a lot, it gives us good reasons against fetishizing original, authentic version. Do you know that Sophocles is not the original version? As far as we can reconstruct the myth, there was an earlier version which sounds much more modern, melodramatic. If somebody were to stage that version today, you would have been accused for cheap Hollywood melodrama. What happens is
you
that...
You mean Antigone with a child?
Yeah, and they escape Thebe, and the child returns 20 years later to take revenge, and so on and so on. I mean, and I think that leaving we should get rid of this romantic myth of original, authentic version. To give you my last example, I think, unfortunately, I always repeat myself, I also quoted in my introduction, an excellent Inuit, once we call them Eskimos, just so that you know. Inuit film Fast Runner, which stages an ancient Inuit myth, but which in its original version, two tribes or two parts of a tribe, they kill each other, totally tragic ending. This film has a happy ending, half happy ending, okay. And then a stupid multiculturalist liberal attacked the director. Oh, you fell into Europe, into Hollywood commercialism. Why didn't you stick to the original? And the director, an excellent Inuit artist who unfortunately died of cancer, gave him a perfect answer. He said, no, you are an European imperialist. He said, because this obsession with authentic original is your European obsession. He said, in our Inuit tradition, it's considered normal to change the story, to rewrite it again and again for the contemporary occasion. So I am a great believer in, no, it's not so much non-authenticity as, that's what I like about, if you really look at them, about traditional cultures. Like another story which may amuse you, a very short one. Years ago, I visited New Zealand, and I found them contact with some group of painters, and first they gave me their authentic bullshit. They later admitted to me, it's just to fascinate Western visitors, that they said, you Western people technologically exploit nature. We are in a dialogue with nature. Before we paint a mountain, we ask the mountain for permission and so on. Okay, 1 week afterwards, we become friends. And they told me the truth. Yeah, you ask the mountain, but you ask especially your representative in New York, who tells you what's fashionable. And they told me at that point, the fashionable thing was sacred objects, old temples in ruins, with here and there a naked feminine body, no? And they told me with wonderful irony, they took care that this is what the mountain told them, you know. And I told them, no, we are not non-authentic. Don't, you have, I hate, they hate white people. Even some American Indians, Native Americans told me this when I visited them in Missoula, Montana, that they hate... No, okay, I will just finish the sentence. They hate white people who come to them and tell them, we live the alienated line, consumerist in big cities, you have your authentic, modest life. They said, they always answer them, okay, let's change positions, no? Give me your nice Los Angeles villa, and you can come to live in my... No, they're... Ich habe gesprochen. Okay.
Also, wenn ihr euch traut, oder noch mehr...
But how will it work?
Auch da oben gibt es irgendwie...
Okay.
Ja.
So much. At first, I want to congratulate you. The last time I saw you was in HSD, I think it's 3 years ago, at this Markus Gabriel conference here in Düsseldorf about design or something. And back then I was an anarchist, and right now, yeah, you convinced me of a more communist stance. And this is my first question, actually, because I know that...
Thanks to our play, hopefully.
Yeah, of course, also because of that. My first question is, I know there's a new forthcoming book which is called For a Left That Dares to Speak Its Name. And I'm actually an organized leftist. I was with Varoufakis in his DM25, and I'm also with Die Linke, and there's also another group that's probably has.
Okay, not the whole list. Ask the question.
Not yet, but okay. I have actually 3 questions, but this is the first one. So I want to know, do you think, because I'm in a struggle arguing with many people, let's call it democracy in Europe movement, I don't know, communism in Europe movement or something like that. Do you think it is indispensable to revive the term, or can we just, implement communism without naming it communism?
If you really ask this question, you'll be sitting here for an hour and a half with him.
No, but I will try to answer very briefly.
But first, my other questions, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The other question is, we consider ourselves accelerationists, not in this vulgar sense that we that we think that capitalism will destroy itself or something, but in this sense that people wrote a book, or the Accelerationist Manifesto, Žižek and Williams, and so on. They want to give more scope to leftist thought and so on, think big questions and so on. But they always take recourse on Deleuze and Guattari, and mostly on Anti-Oedipus and Thousand Plateaus. Yeah. And I know you don't like this book. So do you think, or do you think about reconciling this? Because this is a huge movement on the left that partly, has the same objectives like you, but has theoretical problems. And the last one is kind of a joke question. I know you wanted to stage Parsifal, and all the guys would be drug addicts and so on as an opera. Have you done it yet? Will you do it someday? Don't you want to do it in Düsseldorf, please? Thanks.
No, but okay, very briefly with the last one. Yes, before I became a philosopher, I dreamt of having been an opera director. And my dream was to take a classical big opera, and not in this postmodern way you change everything, just a small change. And I think Parsifal, I hope you know it, the story, would have worked wonderfully if you put it in some decaying suburb of a big megalopolis, and the Grail community is obviously a drug distributing circle. When they distribute Grail, they distribute drug.
I think it's called The Wire. It's a TV series. Yeah.
I have problems with that one. And then Klingsor is, of course, prostitution. Yeah. And it's simply the story is that the guy who runs prostitution wants to take control of drug. So, but more seriously, the other 2 questions. Accelerationism. I will not go into details now. It's 1 hour and a half. Where I am, in some sense, accelerationist, it's only in this one. I absolutely don't buy this idea, popular in some third world countries, that to fight global capitalism, we should look, that was the fashionable term when I was younger, local sites of resistance, You find some remainders of a culture there which may... No, I think the Marxist basic lesson remains. Capitalism may be alienating, blah, 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 but only through the 0 point of capitalism can we reach, maybe, I'm very skeptic, new form of freedom. I think that all these local cultures and so on can be perfectly integrated into today's global capitalism. But the first question, I use the term communism first because I want to oppose socialism. Recently, even people like Elon Musk and Bill Gates proclaim themselves socialists in some sense. Socialism is a worthless term. It means just I can play my dirty market games, but I care about people and so on. Why communism? No, of course I'm not an idiot. I know that, okay, maybe I am, but nonetheless, I know that 20th century communism, it wasn't simply a fiasco, it's a very tragic story. It had one big triumph, if by communism we mean reign of the Communist Party. It's China. I don't think, very rarely in history of humanity was there in a couple of decades such an explosive success. But we should take a lesson in it. How did the Chinese succeed? The 20th century European left hated 2 things: authoritarian state power and brutal market competition. And the Chinese combined precisely these 2. So what I mean is this. The problems we are facing today, not only these three, there is also women's oppression, all that, gay rights and so on, LGBT+, but the one I think are, at least appear as most pressing are ecology, then new forms of digital control. I think it's a crucial struggle today, who will control the digital space, and of course, mass movements of population, fluctuation and so on. And I think all are problems of commons, in the sense nature is our common space, it cannot be left to market and so on, also not to state control. I don't think this was the Stalinist solution, or Chinese tried it. It's the same with digital space, it's the same with immigrants. That's why, not because I don't appreciate immigrants, that's why I have great mistrust in humanitarianism. Because it's not...
Slavoj, you're becoming an anarchist in your old age.
No, I'm not that. I'm for stronger international order. If there will come a really strong ecological catastrophe, it simply cannot be solved, it's clear today, at the level of nation state. We will, it's a okay, maybe this is a utopia, but then we are lost. Some kind of international coordinated movement with some kind of real power is the only, which is not controlled neither by nation states nor by international market. I see an absolute urgency in this. And I'm not proposing any model how this will look. And I even admitted that this is a great problem. I mean, I take, for example, in Venezuela today, it's an extremely sad story, because before it got corrupted, I had connections there. I know Chavez tried desperately to find some new formula, giving factories to workers and so on and so on. Basically, it was not just American embargo, it all failed. So if you ask me for whom I am, here and there are miracles. Just to conclude, for example, Bolivia, Morales and especially Vice President Linera, whom I knew, they were doing something, they were not often in newspapers. Look at the economic data. Economy was growing 5% per year. They didn't do anything stupid, you know, the usual story of two radical leftists, okay, leave them in power for 2-3 years, they will screw up everything. The reason they had to do a coup against Morales is that he didn't fail, he succeeded. So again, I'm very modest. I don't have simple solution, but I think communism is for me more a negative name. How to deal with these pressing problems of commons. And again, the true utopia for me, as I always repeat it, is not, oh, what you wanted to do. The true utopia is that we are not doing so bad, and let's carefully stick to what we are doing now. We will somehow survive. No, we will not.
Okay, it's getting late, people, so what should we say? 3 more questions?
You know, I would like to give this cheap wisdom, pseudo-Zen Buddhism, like listen to silence, clap with one hand or whatever. But the lady here, did you raise your hand or did you want to scratch your hair? No. I always have this semantic opening, you know.
It was more a comment than a question, but
Please.
when you mentioned the many deaths of Antigone were not 54 and the perpetuation of death through the many lives and the many deaths,
yeah.
I kind of thought of the idea of Mussolini hanging from the Esso station.
Sorry, from which station?
Esso station in Milano. Mussolini hanging from the Esso station with his mistress.
Ah, yeah, at the end you mean, yeah.
I think it's a great backdrop for that idea, and then turning that picture upside down, you get a tifosi in the football, making the wave. Have you realized that?
Sorry, you get the
tifosi. If you turn the picture upside down,
yeah,
you get the image of a tifosi.
I didn't know this, sorry. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
try to turn the picture upside
Yeah.
making the wave.
But is this only football? Because I know that in American baseball and so on, you also get this.
But you don't get that with Mussolini.
But what's your point here? Can I just ask you something more? Because you know, I know you probably didn't mean this, but I'm always suspicious about those liberal leftist critics who say, yes, fascism, mass movement, coordinated masses. But are you aware that Hitler took this from social democracy? That originally, I know you will say this, 5 years more in Gulag. Yeah, no, quite seriously, that it was part of his fake, this idea of, because you know, social democrats were from the beginning aware of something that my friend Alain Badiou insists on. Those in power have arms, police power. What people only have is large number and discipline.
I completely agree with you, because I think he was smart enough to make the two main axes, the one of recognition and identity, national identity, cross the one of distribution. You know that whole Polanyi story right now with Nancy Fraser and the two axes, the axis of distribution, acknowledgement, and identity. And I think Hitler was smart enough to make the
when
two
you
of them.
mentioned Nancy Fraser, okay, she's closer to Habermas, I don't agree with it, but she wrote, did you read it, an excellent book criticizing American mainstream feminism. How it got
the
totally...
99%, the new one. The new one with the 99% feminism.
No, I mean this, for example, do you know that the mainstream American feminism supported American invasion of Iraq with the idea it will give greater rights to women? It's totally the opposite. Saddam was a nightmare, brutal, torturing thousands. But he was a secular nationalist, basically, who gave pretty strong positions to women, nonetheless, as far as anybody except him could have. And so that paradoxically, isn't this a tragedy? Okay, United States easily occupied Iraq, but now the position of women is much worse. The position of, you know, Christians.
So did Foucault, right?
Sorry?
Foucault did the same.
No, but he did it with Iran. It was, let's not, but what I want to say is that their problem was, like of Saudi Arabia, limiting Iranian influence, and the result of American occupation was that now Iran is stronger than ever in Iraq, and it's practically taking it over. I really think that...
Which is terrible for Palestinians.
Terrible for Palestinians, and if I may be a little bit arrogant here, at least only here, we are still friends, a little bit sympathy for Europe. You know what is Trump doing? Listen, how the Syrian crisis was maybe for the time being resolved. Deal between Turkey and Russians. We occupy this part, they that part. Libya now the same. But you know what this means? That Russia, together with Turkey, will totally control the pipelines, oil supply to Europe, and will be able to squeeze us at any point.
I come from the second world. I'm a Spaniard myself.
Well,
I'm a Spaniard. I come from the second world.
Which one? I didn't get the country.
I'm a Spaniard. I'm Spanish.
Why do you think this is second?
We are an intervened country.
How do you stand to Catalonia? No, sorry, I don't want, no, sorry, very briefly, I don't want now another debate.
Okay,
but I was
can
always
I make
for
two
Catalonia till I learned, do you know how high are Putin's investment in? He supports Catalonia independence because Putin supports everything that weakens Europe. Now I touch some...
Okay, I make two caveats. I endorse all your jokes, and I tell them to all my friends. That means I'm not...
Also the dirty ones?
Also the dirty ones. In Spain, you can do that as a woman. I don't know in Germany.
She means she's a very brave woman these days. That's,
yes. I think it's interesting that we are revisioning the whole national structure of Spain through this movement, but we shouldn't forget that the movement in Catalonia was begun by the high bourgeoisie,
yeah.
nationalists.
My solution is also in this sense that, you know, it's not just as simple as honest, independent.
I think Spain is very much like Yugoslavia was, and you have places like Extremadura and middle of Spain that are so, you know, depraved of everything, and the Catalonians are behaving like the rich.
But they are the rich part. Only Basques are richer, and they rebel even more. At least they did. Some people even call the term.
We'll have a beer afterwards, and then
okay.
we'll discuss.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I would like to go on, but we
have.
We had 3 questions, but this was basically 10 already. So there's 2 hands. So let's take those 2, and then we stop, and you discipline yourself a little bit. Okay? Mit Rot und Schwarz, dann kurz daneben.
Hello. Often in your videos you said happiness is not something to perceive, and I know a lot of people who are really, really broken, and depression is rising, and how can we defeat capitalism and solve problems like climate change if we are all broken? What do you...
You mean, sorry, just, no, I'm not interrupting you, just explanation. You mean broken psychologically or economically?
No, psychologically.
Psychologically, yeah.
Genau. So how do we get out of this? And a lot of people are feeling like victims, and if we feel like it, we don't have the power to fight. And how do we can get out of it?
Okay, this is what they call in TV quizzes $1 million question. No, but my main answer would have been that we shouldn't approach the question in these terms, you know, like as a psychological question. You don't get out of depression by thinking about depression all the time. You must change the terrain, not care about it, to move out of this domain. That's for me the big problem of today's left in such a subtle way, even, for example, racism. How the middle class politically correct activists approach it. They like to reformulate racism as a question of tolerance, which is already an ideological operation. All of a sudden, it's not a problem, our class differences, whatever, but why don't I tolerate you? Then you make a next pseudo-psychoanalytic step, because I'm projecting into you some of my traumas, and then we are in this suspicious sphere, and so on and so on. So I agree with you that this is maybe, we cannot offer clear solutions, leftist theorists, philosophers today. Maybe our main task is to denounce wrong questions. How? To formulate a problem in a certain way can precisely enforce the mystification, can make it impossible to resolve it. That's why, for me, very naively, I don't idealize him. But Bernie Sanders offers a totally different approach. He doesn't complain about victimization and so on and so on. And it's incredibly sad how now not only Donald Trump, of course, and his side, but even the majority of the establishment Democratic Party, now they are at Bernie Sanders, you know. And all the progressives, truly progressives, like all those, the squad, called by Trump, young ladies, Alessandria Ocasio-Cortez, and so on, stood for Bernie Sanders. So, you know, problem is resolved for me here by changing the terrain, not by getting stuck into it, even, but so that you will not think that I simplify things here. That's what I find. I've written about it, maybe some of you know the text. So interesting in the figure of Joker from the movie. Some of my friends made a totally wrong leftist reading, like Joker is a metaphor of Trump. No, my point was, if you compare Joker with Trump, it's an insult to Joker, not to Trump. Joker, for me, in all his madness and so on, does something beautiful. He identifies with his mask. He rejects to play these games. Did my mother screw me up? What did I do wrong? Joker is misread as a film of deep psychological analysis. Let's look what happened to him, what traumas and so on. No, the message is you identify with your mask, you absolutely reject to get caught into these deep roots and so on and so on. And maybe to conclude with one of my intellectuals heroes, Jacques Lacan, he had the same problem. Friends were telling me, older than me who knew him, that Lacan behaved in public in a very affected, typically French way, you know, these artificial manners. And then, of course, as a typical bourgeois subject, I was asking all of them, but tell me, how was he privately like? Was he more funny, humor? And they told me a wonderful thing. In private, he was exactly the same. It was never possible to catch, oh, now finally he is a warm human person like us. I think that all true leftists do something like this. The thing to avoid absolutely is this. How should I put it? I believe in external fight, not in this deep looking into your traumas and so on and so on. So I didn't answer a question, I know, but I hope I gave you, you know, sorry to amuse you, this is my old joke, but when I was young and when the crisis of the left began, leftists were afraid to offer direct answers, you know. Like, they never, in the 60s, leftists were still writing books like Aesthetic Theory, Philosophy of Nature. Then it's a very subtle change. From 70s, 80s on, typical leftist books had titles like Elements for a Future Theory of Aesthetic or what. You're like, let's be careful. And then the story goes on. I'm so sorry we don't have time. In postmodernism, 90s, there was a new formula. With horror I discovered that even I followed it. Poetic title, explanatory subtitle, like, I'm sorry for a very evil male chauvinist example, Beat Me Harder, Darling, the motive of feminine masochism in 19th century poetry, you know, like, this was there, you know. And now I hope I'm absolutely for a return to kind of naivety. No, fuck it, we do economics of capitalism, we do cinema theory or whatever.
I think
der letzte Mann.
It's last man up, last woman up, last man up. I'm not
Sorry, I'm myopic. That's why I cannot say what sex it is. Bitte? Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Thanks to your talk and to all those interesting questions.
But when you begin like this, you are sharpening your knife.
Okay.
Please. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. I have two questions. I want to talk about art and culture, and you write a piece. You write a piece for a theater, and you don't you don't destroy the stage or fight against the audience. So why do you choose this form of theater? So you spoke about Bertolt Brecht and Lehrstück.
Yeah.
So I go home tonight and think, I see something from Slavoj Žižek. And now, so that's my first question. So why do you choose this form? My second question is, Donald Trump and I think the president of the Ukraine come from the TV show. So I use the German words, they are in some kinds Schauspieler.
Yeah.
And I ask me, is democracy what we do? Is this something of piece of a theater? Is democracy Demokratie, fuck up the English language, yeah, something of a big piece for theater. What do you say?
Okay, let me go very, very briefly. First, you said this Brecht and so on. I think we live in very strange times. I forgot her name, but it's not racism, it's senility again. I forgot her name. There is a cultural theorist of Chinese origins in the United States, my God, I'm so sorry, who wrote an excellent piece claiming that all these Verfremdungs strategy by Brecht is now absolutely part of artistic mainstream. You are absolutely not allowed to identify.
That's
to
obvious.
Sorry?
That's
yeah.
Obvious.
So I think that it's very common observation. I'm sure, without any irony, you know it better than me. That you know, in the last decades, this tendency to undermine and to transgress all limits and so on functions is so radicalized in art. For example, in England, I spoke with a friend of mine, a painter, who wants to do an exhibition with big Thatcher supporters, Saatchi and Saatchi Gallery. And they told him, what? You have just paintings. No, today it must be frames without a painting. It must be some statue of Christ in urine. It has to be a dead cow or what. You know that all this, they are so perfectly incorporated that, and also, that's why, okay, now this will surprise you, but maybe it's a good ending. You know, some media present today's big conflict as the conflict between, on the one hand, fanatical conservatives, and on the other hand, these postmodern, naive, no, they are naive, but postmodern ironists, you don't take anything seriously, blah, blah. I say, okay, but who is who? If this totally manipulative, ironic attitude is postmodernism, then Donald Trump is the ultimate postmodern president. And if you look at somebody, and that's what I like at him, and Bernie Sanders is an authentic, are they throwing us out or what?
Then I was looking for postmodern.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying is that I like Bernie Sanders because he is, I even know people who know him, 3 levels of separation degrees, that he is a very naive moralist. He takes himself as I am the true moral majority, and as a leftist, I'm tempted to do this. Another thing when sorry, what was your yeah, Trump and so on. I think this is part of a larger movement. Is it übersetzt ins Deutsche, this Angela Nagle book, Kill All Normies? Yes, I advise you to read it. It's a very interesting book for which she was almost excommunicated, where she describes this reversal. At least 30, 40 years ago, when I was young, you know, the official right, those in power, spoke the language of patriotism, dignity, respect, and leftist students were doing things like this, F-word and so on, we are subverting power. But now, this is the horror of the so-called alt-right, alternative right. They fully appropriated these obscenities. They are the only ones who are making dirty jokes and so on. And the tragedy is that the path, the way to fight this chosen by the left is this politically correct moralism against hate speech. I am against hate speech, but I think if you play this legalistic way of trying to regulate it, even for example, many of my friends who are definitely leftists, I once was almost arrested for a dirty joke. People in the whole I think that when politics is moralized in this way, it's very dangerous. It means that you don't really have a positive vision, and so on and so on. I'm a pessimist here. I'm a pessimist here because that's the tragedy. Trump is not just a guy who miraculously manipulated ordinary people and so on. Don't despise Trump supporters. They are desperate people. They clearly felt excluded in the sense that the democratic hegemony, predominant, didn't address their troubles, and so this is why I think that the only way, at least in the United States, for the return of the left is not what Joe Biden is doing, to try to occupy the middle ground. We shouldn't go too much to the left, but more moderate. No, it's to directly address those impoverished, desperate white people who now vote for Trump. It's a very difficult operation. So I think but you know what also surprises me? That's Trump at its purest. First, the incredible obscenity of Trump. Did you read, it happened a month or two ago. We always think Trump went to the end, but then he goes a step further. She is in conflict with some lady FBI agent, and some of her erotic conversations of phone became, I don't know how public, with her lover, and you can immediately find it on YouTube. You get Trump for 2 minutes in front of thousands of people, imitating her having orgasm and so on. Everybody thought now Trump is ruined. It's not. But then this vulgarization is common. Did you read it a week ago? I read. You know the actress Gwyneth Paltrow. You know what she did? Did you read it? She put on market a candle, and it's not. Yeah, it's not implied. It says openly, the smoke smells like my vagina. I mean, here I'm a kind of a leftist moral conservative. I will stop now.
Yeah. And Antigone, leftist moralism, conservatism. It's maybe a good ending. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I have to tell you in. Wait a minute. This would happen even if by conservatism we mean ordinary people today who simply want some kind of basic decency and so on. We should not be afraid to tell them no. In this bad sense, the true obscene revolutionaries are these, like Trump, like postmodern conservatives. We, the left, are the true authentic conservatives. If you are worried about lack of dissolution of solidarity and so on, we should occupy that terrain. And get out of this logic of minority. We should protect some tiny marginal movement and so on. Of course, we should do this, but don't be afraid to really say to this simply worried, confused majority, we are with you.
That solidarity is still the singular word of politics, and speaking for the AGORA, or with the AGORA as a company that is based on solidarity and a basis demokratisch organisiert, I think this is a good company.
You told me yesterday, yeah, basis democracy, but yesterday you still met with the Prime Minister of that part of Belgium, you know. But I have nothing against it. One should be brutally pragmatic here. I agree. Vielen Dank.